All right, we have a special edition of Chopping It Up with Buck, the live edition. Kevin always has the music playing. My producer, Kevin, has it going, and it's apropos because I got all these TV producers on who's gonna probably critique, but I think it's really good to have all my guys that I've known since I broke in this industry, and guys that I've worked with over the course of time. I have James Dunn from the University of Georgia. He's a big-time Bulldog, always loves it. Kim Belton, one of my Pac-12, Pac-10 guys from Stanford University. I got Paul Irvin from Florida A&M, FAMU, and then I have Reggie Walker from Penn State. So guys, thanks for coming on. And I think one of the things, Paul and I were talking a few weeks ago, and it was just, we're not able to get out. COVID has done a lot of things, but I thought it would be interesting to get all of you guys on, because I'll tell a quick story before I go to you. I can remember one of the ESPN meetings, I see Kim Belton, big brother, walk in, former basketball player. And I'm like, whoa, and we started talking. He was a producer. Didn't have many Black producers that I knew of at that time. Then I get to ESPNU and I'm working with James Dunn, Paul, and Reggie. And all of them come in a little bit after me, but it was always cool when you could have a conversation with guys that look like you, thought like you, and could have just a good conversation about sports. And that's the one thing I want to ask first and foremost, breaking into the industry. How was that for you? Kim, I'll start with you, since you were the first guy I met at ESPN. What was that like for you? How was it to break in this industry?
Initially I started at ABC. Once the NBA stuff fizzled out, I just started interviewing for jobs, and I interviewed at ABC starting as a production assistant, which is, as you know, the lowest rung on the ladder. And, I went in and I interviewed. There was 3 white executives around me, Dennis Lewin, Chuck Howard, Chet Forty, people who actually started this industry that we're in. And they just started peppering me with questions. By the time I walked out, my mom had gotten a call that offered me a job as a PA. And I didn't know very much about television. I mean, I was a communications major in college, but I didn't know very much about television. So it was difficult in the beginning because I was just literally a sponge, just trying to soak all it up. And after a couple of years, I got promoted to become an AD. So it was good. It was a good opportunity.
Yeah. And Kim, you bring up a good point. Now, let's not. I was teasing you before when you got on 2016. Pac-12 Hall of Fame, basically. So you had you came from a sports background. Reggie, I'm gonna go to you from Penn State. You had that same thing. You played football in college. How did that transition happen for you, and what was it like moving from the football field now and behind the camera?
Well, it's interesting for me. Oddly enough, it actually started in college, and I tell this story all the time. People laugh at me. I took a labor and industrial relations class, and because my plan initially was I was going to be a sports agent if push comes to shove. Took a labor and industrial relations class. I enjoyed the class. I actually got an A in it. But at the same time, I said, there's no way I'm doing this for the rest of my life. This is boring, and I need a little bit more activity. I need a little more excitement. And so I started looking around, and I found a TV program. And ironically, we talk about athletics all the time and how you could lose an opportunity because of the next guy. And that guy at the time was Michael Robinson. We were supposed to have, we were working on a television show on campus, and Mike just didn't show up for the audition that he didn't really need to show up for. And so they gave me the slot, and that's kind of how it started. And then when I got out of school, you go through the other things, and you chase some things, and I tried to chase the NFL and all of that. And essentially what happened was I got an opportunity. I finally got a call from ESPN, and I was living actually here in Charlotte, working in staffing. Ironically, I was giving people jobs, and I got a chance to go up there, and same scenario as Kim just mentioned. I was sitting around a room with all white guys. Nobody looked like me in that room. And my whole thing, and the thing I told myself going in is, I may not know enough about television that they may want me to know, but I'm going to know everything there is to know about every single sport that's going on, because what they won't be able to deny is my ability to bring perspective, not only from having played, but also the way that I watch. I try to study every moment of every sport that I'm watching.
Yeah, that's cool, Reggie. And I think, Paul, you and I talked about this. You were a hoop head, grew up in Chicago, went to FAMU. So understanding the game and really from that perspective, how was it for you? Did you have that set up too when you went in and interviewed on some of those first interviews with multiple people? You have to sit down like a panel interview and getting peppered with questions as well.
You know what? It's funny listening to their two stories. Mine is quite different from that. I'll give you the short version. I graduated from school in 2001. TV was always my dream. I went to school for broadcast journalism, so I was on the path, but I couldn't find a job. So the NABJ convention happened, National Association of Black Journalists, for those that don't know, and I didn't go. I couldn't afford to go. A friend of mine that I went to FAM with knew I was a sports junkie. She went to the convention, and she just called me and said, "Hey, I met this ESPN recruiter. I'm not interested in sports, but we ended up, just hanging out, conversing. I mentioned your name. Told him I have a good friend who's a sports junkie. Long story short, she says, send me your resume. I email it to her. She gets it to him. He calls me. They fly me out to Bristol. This guy is Fred Brown, who's a brother who I still talk to this day. Fred interviewed me and Fred in a room one-on-one, and Fred's from Chicago. So I went in there and I was like, all right. I'm like, so you brought me out on my friend's word, you're a Chicago guy, so we had that. And I'm just a sports junkie, so I knew sports. Yeah. And I went to school for TV, so I was qualified. But the whole point of that is, I don't get that shot probably if it's not Fred, who's a black recruiter, who was looking out, right? Because you just think about, he didn't know anything about me. Got my resume from a girl that I was cool with that he just met, and off the strength of that, called me, set up an interview, flew me out. And the rest is kind of history, but it was just me and Fred in a room, one-on-one, me and a fellow black guy. That was it.
Wow. JD, what about you? I know, it's always interesting to hear people's story and how they got in. And I always have so many people when I go do games or when I'm just out and about, hey, how do you break in the industry? They think you're just going to send something to ESPN and they're going to hire you on the spot. It doesn't always work like that. And y'all all know you're laughing. But JD, how did it work for you? How did you get in this industry?
So when similar to Kim and Reggie, I went in at University of Georgia and I was a business major. And I remember taking marketing class, and I don't even know why I chose that, but I was taking a class and I remember coming out of there one day and I was like, this is terrible. I can't imagine doing this every day the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. So I went to a career advisor and I asked him, I said, and it was a brother, and I said, I can't, I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's not this. And he said, well, what do you like? I said, I really like sports, man, and I really love what those people on ESPN do, but that's probably like being an actor, man. That's impossible. Like, how can you do that? And I remember him saying to me, it's probably not as hard as you think. And he said, what you're talking about is broadcast journalism. And so from that point on, that's the track that I took. And I'll tell you quickly, so at school, I was on the radio. I joined the radio show at the University of Georgia. I wrote for our newspaper. I started covering high school football games, and I got paid like $50. I had bylines, but it was easy money. You go and cover the high school game, you write a little article, right? But it was cool, and $50 for every college student can come in handy. So that was kind of how I got in. And then I'll tell you, when my first job out of college, I was hired at CNN on the VJ program. But before that, I had a phone interview for another position, entry-level position at CNN. And I got to tell you, he called me, I had a phone interview, and I bombed. I bombed. And I'll never forget, I don't know who this, I wish I could find out who this HR person was, but it's just a random HR guy. He called me, he said, hey, I got to ask you some questions about news topics. I didn't get one right. Like, he asked me 5 questions. I couldn't even, it was to the point where I was like, man, I can't even answer the question. And he stopped. Now, he could have said to me, thanks for your time, Mr. Dunn. We appreciate you. And then hung up. This cat read me the riot act. He said, look, man, he said, I got to stop you. He said, you applied for a job at CNN. And I'm asking you stories that are on headlines right now. and you can't answer one. He said, I know you applied for the VJ program. You need to be on this. He said, I'm gonna hang up. You're not getting this job, but I think they might call you for the next one. And if you blow that, I don't know what to tell you.
Mm.
I went out that day. I'm gonna date myself. I went out and I got the AJC because at the time it was only newspapers. Late 90s. I grabbed the newspaper. I kept a notebook and I wrote down, I read it every day for 2 weeks. The world pages, the US pages, and the sports page. Every day, and I took notes on every name and title I came up across. So they did call me 2 weeks later, and I nailed it. I got everyone right, and then I took a writing test, and I went down and interviewed, and they gave me the job. So my first job in the industry, again, it took somebody to give me a kick in the butt, but it motivated me, and I got my shot at CNN. And to Paul's point, and the rest is history.
James, that's an interesting story. And I think, Kim, you were kind of alluding to that, not knowing what to, how to do this job initially. Who helped you? Who was the one that said, look, hey, my man, I need you to get this thing right? Because all of us have had that, right? We're like, God, dog, we got our butts kicked. It ain't how you get it kicked, but how you come back strong after that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I go back to that first interview. Mm-hmm. And in the interview, I never forget, Dennis Lewin asked me, one of the questions was if someone is going to yell at you and scream at you and give you a hard time when who maybe 2 or 3 years older than you are, how are you going to handle that? You're a big guy. So I'm thinking, does he think I'm violent? Does he think I'm going to beat the hell out of somebody because they're going to yell at me? Because, back in those days, there was a lot of yelling and screaming and cussing and people yelling on off, so to speak. But, I said, I deal with him like I would deal with him if he's my boss at that particular time. But what if he's only a couple years older than you are? I say, still, I got to respect the job. So I'm not going to, and also it depends on how they come at me. If I made a mistake and I'm worthy of getting yelled at, okay, fine. But so from that moment on, I realized that there was no one else like me to actually look up to actually information. So I just what I would try and do is try to find out what everybody did, what they did. So that was really how it helped me move forward. It wasn't that I had a grandfather, as it were.
Yeah.
I actually, I would, on my own time, I'd come in and watch them produce a show in the studio. I would come in and see what the director did. I would come in and see what the audio guy did. I wanted to know a little bit about everything so that when my time came, I wouldn't, I couldn't flinch, Yeah. I didn't know. I back then we were using Chiron. That's
man.
I'm really date yourself. And previous to that, they were using manual graphics. Okay, so now I'm really dating myself on a Chrome tweet. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I didn't know what graphics machine was, what it did, but eventually, just watching, and almost kind of like what James said, I had my book, and I still to this day have a book that I carry around. I just make my notes.
Take notes, yeah.
And I just see what people do. So I had almost a written history of my time there, and I use that to kind of propel myself forward.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, there was no one to look up to.
Yeah. Well, Kim, you got a good book coming, I'm sure, with all the history you have there, with all the stuff. And I'll say this about yelling. I've worked with everybody here except you, Kim. You and I have had, we've talked, we've, chopped it up or whatever. But the one thing is, all these guys are real cool when I've worked with them. Only time, sometimes I'll go along, Buck, got a break. Come on, buddy. I can hear all of you in my head.
No, that's James with the come on, buddy. That's JB. That's JB.
Come on, man. I need you to rap.
First game I ever did. I was doing the Circle City Classic. It was, I don't know what even production house. But the producer initially in the first quarter, he was in my ear the whole time. And I had never done a game. I'd done radio, cussing up a storm. I mean, it was just like, so, and the talk back didn't work. So finally I told the stage manager, I said, look, you got to go get this guy because he is killing me. I mean, I can't call this game and I'm already nervous. So I guess the one question I have for Paul, how did you get the cool vernacular? Because it gets crazy in the truck. And Kim, you guys can all attest to this, or in the room, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people don't know. And when you watch it, you're like, whoa, how do you guys keep your cool demeanor? And Paul, how have you been able to just keep your calm in the face of a storm like that?
Yeah, so for me, it's I'm generally a kind of calm for the most part, right? In most situations. And honestly, so I didn't really have anyone that I kind of looked up to or leaned on, kind of like Kim was saying, when I was coming up through the ranks, PA, AP, all of that stuff, till I got to be an actual chair. But what I did do is I observed producers, right? So I've seen the yelling, the cursing. I've seen producers that make it APs and PAs literally cry, right? Yeah. So I used to watch this and I would be in meetings and I would say, I'm not going to be a producer like that. I'm not going to be like that. So I'm just like an athlete, right? I'm taking something from your game, and I always told myself, I'm not going to be just treating people like crap. Like, to this day, and it's helped me because it's feedback I get a lot of times from managers, right? They're saying if things could hit the biggest, the SH could hit the fan and you are like, nobody knows, right? Like my talent doesn't know. And if you just walked in the control room, you wouldn't know. But I kind of pride myself on that, right? Like who works better when they're getting yelled at and cursed out and called an idiot, right? First of all, I don't want to be all Pollyanna, but it's just not nice, right? Like, why are you just cursing it? Like, what I always try to think is this: nobody is trying to mess up, right? Like, nobody's trying to mess up. Everybody wants they want the production to be good. Two, your job is frankly on the line. So I always try to think of that, and I'll address it after the game or after the show, right? So even in the moment, the most you'll get out of me is, right, something like that. Mm-hmm. After the show, I'll say, hey, what happened with that graphic or what? That's not what we talked about. And we could talk about it. But, for me, it just came from observing basically producers that I thought were jerks and saying, I'm never going to be that guy. And, and it's just more in my personality to just kind of be just a calm, I'll think about something before I react. Even if you mess up, I ask you why you did that. Because maybe you did it for a reason. And once you explain, it makes sense. I'm like, oh. Well, I didn't think of that. That's not really what I wanted, but I didn't think of that, right? But it's just not my style. Like I'm just not yelling at people. Like that's just not my thing, right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna take a short break with Chopping It Up with Buck. We'll be right back on the other side talking about some more topics. There's a lot going on in the world, and I think we want to address that. We'll be right back. Yeah. Kev, how long we got? You saying break, Kev?
Big sports drink for me, keep it going, keeping myself up. It gets me on top of my game, extra boost that I need to keep it going in the fourth quarter. Working out, definitely a good drink for you to have. All the good nutrition that you need inside of it. Passion fruit, it's my favorite one. It's not just for professional athletes, it's for everyone. I definitely can say it definitely works in the office or in the weight room, wherever you may be. Go to thinenergy.com, tell them I sent you, and get your drink. Thin Energy, the healthy alternative. Drink it, live it. See, if I got something like that, I can just go. No sugar, no crash.
Thin Energy. Many people are looking for natural alternatives to help ease their aches and pains. Begin stopping the pain with the help of Pain Stopper. Formulated by healthcare providers, Pain Stopper helps alleviate a variety of physical ailments so you can get back to doing what you love. Our products are triple independently lab tested to ensure the highest quality hemp available. Visit PainStopCBD.com for more information. Pain Stopper, because why manage pain when you can stop it?
How you guys doing? It's Artavis Scott here. The reason why I like Thin Energy is because I need to be at my peak performance no matter what I do. big sports drink for me, you know, keep it going, keeping myself up. It gets me on top of my game, extra boost that I need to keep it going in the fourth quarter. Working out, definitely a good drink for you to have. All the good nutrition that you need inside of it. Passion fruit, it's my favorite one. It's not just for professional athletes, it's for everyone. I definitely can say it definitely works in the office or in the weight room, wherever you may be. Go to thinenergy.com, tell them I sent you, and get you a drink. Thin Energy, the healthy alternative. Drink it, live it.
Now, with everything that's going on, share with us what you were saying during that break, which I thought was spot on.
Yeah, the reality of it is, you know, for anybody who might have missed it, I was saying it's not really in my personality to berate and curse. And a lot of the things that probably most of us have honestly experienced before we became producers is the reality is, as a Black man, we can't afford to do that, right? The playing field is not and has not been level, right? A lot of conversations we're having in the world are surrounding that, and hopefully things change. But I'm looking at it like, if I'm doing the things this white producer's done, I'm not producing anymore. And that's just, you know, as cut and dry as I could say it. So we don't have that wiggle room to even do that, right? And then that just becomes part of who you are as a producer anyway, right? So that also plays a part into it. It's in my natural personality, but I'm also smart enough to know I can't be around here cursing out these people, because the reality is, if you want to take it to another layer, is Black producer, most of the people I'd be cursing out are white employees. That's not, I mean, come on, let's just be real. That's not going to float.
No, you make an interesting point on that, Paul. And let me add to that. And I think for me, it's an added piece, right? I look at it from a standpoint of coming off the field. And you guys all know this. The minute an athlete comes off the field, whether you made a mistake or not, if that coach gets in your ear and you react the wrong way as a Black athlete, you immediately get put in a category of a guy that doesn't deal with the confrontation, doesn't deal with the mistake the right way. So for me, I learned as a player, if I come off that field and I just blew a coverage or I just gave up a 70-yard touchdown and Joe's yelling at me, or Buck, as you know, Scrap is in my face, I have to stay calm and talk to him. I cannot fire back, because when you fire back, you're immediately categorized as uncoachable, difficult to deal with, all of those things, and that never leaves you. And so I take the same thing into the control room as a producer, and then now as I do games, I take the same approach. When I mess up something, get into a break or go too long on a replay or whatever the case may be, and a producer kind of gets in my ear, I make sure, however I respond, I do not snap back. I'm not a difficult person to work with, because I know that'll get marked down as, don't bring this guy back to my booth, because he doesn't want to play nice with others. And that's not the case. Now, you still have to defend yourself if necessary. But I always say I try to take that from the field and take that with me into the control room and or the broadcast booth.
I think you were saying something on it, Kim, too. We'll get your take on it. And, you know, I think it's interesting to hear that, because we all kind of agreed as soon as Paul said that, we were like, yeah, that's spot on with what we all kind of had in our head. We just didn't kind of say it, you know?
Yeah, you know, the thing is, I mean, earlier I mentioned about that interview I was at, and they asked the question, if someone's a little bit older than you, and they cuss and they yell at you, how are you going to react? Well, you got to remember, it's not like we're as many of us that look like us, right? So invariably, we're in a truck where we're the minority. And oftentimes, you know, if you react in a way where you got to be forceful, have to be forceful. But if you just cuss and holler and just yell incessantly, I mean, first of all, you'll lose the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, more importantly, you'll probably lose your job, right? To the point where, I mean, I actually stood up, and I'm 6'7", I'm about 250 on a good day, and I'm talking to an audio guy and a TD who made mistakes. I'm just talking to him, but they tried to get me fired because they thought I was intimidating, right? And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, intimidating. All I did was stand up, and I'm just talking to him like I'm talking to you. I wasn't cussing, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't hollering, but they found that intimidating, and literally called human resources to try and get me fired.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It leads us into this covering sports and social issues. I mean, there's so much going on, no matter where you work. You know, we are all at different places. We've all been together at ESPN at times. James, tell me about how you view this with sports now really taking the forefront in some of these social issues. You got guys really speaking out in the past where they may not have said anything, or they've said it, but it stayed in the locker room. You're hearing more from that. You're hearing people really have a voice. How is it going to be now covering sports and the social issues that you see that are happening, seems like every single day?
Well, on the show that I produce now, you know, we hit a lot of social issues. We hit them before, but we hit them a lot now. And a lot of that is because you don't have a lot of sports going on right now due to COVID-19. But, you know, because of that, you know, but we don't run from Colin Kaepernick storylines. We don't run from everything that happened and this athlete speaking out, you know, on the murder of George Floyd. So when we talk about things like that on the show, we make sure that our talent on camera, I make sure that they're informed because I want them to be in the best position so that not only can they, you know, entertain our viewers, they can also come at it from an informed perspective. So part of that is us having our show meetings. Part of that is us making sure that they get the right material. We send them content. We tell them, hey, here are the topics we're going to hit on the day before so that they can formulate those opinions. They can do the research, you know, to talk about, you know, the different topics that we discuss on the show. And I mean, I think the day of not talking about social issues, I feel like that day is gone now. Like, I mean, you talking about, you're going to see it once sports start happening. I mean, when the NBA starts up, you're going to see Black Lives Matter on the basketball courts. You know, how many NFL players have already said in that first game they're going to be kneeling, you know, during the anthem. So, you know, it's something that's, you know, it's going to be discussed. I think it's a long time coming. And I think a lot of these younger athletes today are more in the mold of the athletes from the 60s, like Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown and Bill Russell, who spoke out during their times, as opposed to the guys maybe in our era, you know, who maybe didn't speak out as much. I think this new athlete nowadays, these people are speaking out, and I think it's great to hear them when they do.
James, you bring up a good point. You talk about the research, and it kills me when I hear people saying, "Oh, they're telling you what to say." Or I've been in a lot of those production meetings, and I think the one thing as a producer that you have to do is make sure you don't put a guy in a position where he's going to fail, because he's going to fail in front of everybody. You know that as a producer, and I think that's the key. And I have seen that happen where guys say, "I know something," when they don't. So I think that's an innate. That's something that you have to have, especially now when people do this a whole lot. But if they don't have anything to say, the people on the screen will know, the people behind the camera know, and people at home will know. I mean, Paul, how is it for you? I mean, we had some really good conversations the other day about these social issues, about companies now, my company, whether it's corporate America, you know, your company, whether it's TV, whether it's any industry now, saying, okay, we have to really look at ourselves, but we also have to let those voices be heard and not try to squelch them from what is really going on.
It's interesting. Obviously, as of now, it's only been a lot of conversations. You know, I produce events, and ain't no events, right? So I can't speak to exactly how it will translate to once I get back on that bench and once I get back into the truck. But what I can say is there have been times in the past where I have tried to maybe push certain elements or stories. I remember one actually this past year. It was a Black History Month element. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wanted to push it. My white play-by-play guy, there was just a disconnect, right? He wasn't understanding why I felt this should be in the show and why it was important, right? Obviously, it was closer to me than it was to him, but it's just that disconnect, right? And I think now going forward, hopefully, people will be more open, right? Our announcers will be more open and understanding, and even if they don't understand it, to just trust me and say, "You're right, trust me," and just say, okay, I don't know much about this, but I'm going with you, right? So hopefully it'll translate that way. And I've had a number of conversations with most of the execs in production at our company, and I'm told, things will change. So it'll be interesting to see, but I've always been one that loves to hear athletes speak out and just be honest and be true to themselves, right? They're not robots. So I love it.
Yeah. Reggie, I'll go to you, and then Kim, you as well. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know both of you guys are saying you're hopeful that, and I know I've been in those meetings. I've been with guys that they say one thing behind the scenes, and then they come on camera, and there's things you have to push them to really understand and tell them, no, this is what happens, or this is how it is for me. I don't walk around with this saying I've been called the N-word, or I've seen this, or I've seen a noose on a golf course. But if you ask me, I'm gonna tell you. And so what from you, Reggie, and Kim, after that, what is it going to be like with this covering sports and the social issues that have taken place?
Well, I think the first thing is it's going to start with, and you talked about looking, right? Companies looking at themselves. I'm going to make sure that we're not afraid to ask them, what do they see? Because I think that's important. A lot of people will play the plausible deniability game in a heartbeat, right? Oh, I didn't notice it that way. I didn't see it that way. No. Okay, now you told me what you saw. Now let me tell you what I see. Let me tell you whether you believe it or not, I'll be nice to you and call it a perception, right? And then I want to see the action behind that. Now, to add to that, I think it's very, very important. And I've been pushing this, and because again, I work full-time in news, and then obviously I do sports in terms of games right now. So the big thing for me has been the message and why it's important. Like, let me explain what they're talking about. So I've made sure that a lot of times in our shows that we're not only hearing what the person is talking about and hearing the words, but where is the data? Let's make sure I'm showing the data behind it, so that if nothing else, the viewer can realize that what this person is saying, what this athlete or activist or whoever it might be, what they're saying comes from a place that not only is from an emotional attachment, but is also a factual, for lack of a better term, statistical reality that a lot of people have refused to look at. It's amazing to me how much people can tell you about facts this and facts that, and then you put a factual thing in front of them, like what's going on with race in this country, and they go, well, I don't think it's that bad. Well, why not? Now all of a sudden you don't care about this fact. So to me, that's one of the things. And then the other thing I do, I'm very big on using people's words, use their own words to teach them the lessons they need to learn. I had a conversation, this was years ago, and some of y'all might be able to figure out who this conversation was with, about Colin Kaepernick. And his words were, I'm former military and he's disrespecting the flag. And I said, well, look, Colin Kaepernick has come out and said multiple times, it's not about the flag. So it's not about the flag. So he said he didn't believe him. So we kept talking. And about 5 minutes later in the conversation, I said, you know what, man, I think you're racist. And he said, whoa, I'm not racist. How are you going to say I'm racist? I said, well, I don't believe you based on the things that you've said in the last 5 minutes. And he said, well, that's messed up. I said, well, you don't have to believe Colin. I don't have to believe you. Lesson learned. I don't know if he agreed with me, but I can tell you by the look on his face, something hit him that day.
Yeah, and Kim, Reggie, I think it's spot on, because Nate Boyer, the University of Texas football player and former military, personnel guy, was able to talk to Colin Kaepernick and said, I think you should do this. And that's the reason why he kneeled. Kim, what about you on that? I mean, how's it going to be from just covering events, but also the social issues that will continue to happen now that it's out?
You know, there's always been this thing, if a fight breaks out in the crowd, don't show it, right? Don't show it, because you show it, you know, you're going to create, it's going to move like wildfire. So the next game you go to, they're going to do something in the crowd just so you can show it, right? I think we're getting to the point where, you know, we may have to show that. We may have to show that, because it could just be a fight over someone's wearing a MAGA hat and someone, you know, which can spawn other things within there. So I think the old ways of coverage will have to change, you know. And as far as where we go with this, and, you know, we were all doing this, you can look the part or you can be the part. Now the key is, will they be the part? You know, that's yet to be determined. But I think what gives this more legs than anything else, and makes this not a moment but a movement, is the fact that white folks were involved.
Yeah.
Man, gotta tell the truth. I mean, I'm old enough to know that in 1968, when you looked at the crowd, it was mostly black folks, right? Well-dressed black folks protesting. You look now, it's a virtual, you know, rainbow coalition,
yeah.
You know, and to be honest with you, that's what's going to give this legs. That's why, you know, I only did one finger, two fingers instead of both, because I think we got a chance. You know, I really think we have a chance, because Paul and I have been on some calls. I'm sure you guys have been on other calls as well. But you hear the hurt, you hear the fear, and you hear aspirations. And I think they gotta step up and make those happen now. Because if they don't, I just don't see the business being the same at all. If they don't, they have no credibility at all.
Yeah. Now, how does COVID impact us in sports? I mean, I know the social issues and COVID. We're trying to get games again, right? Everybody's trying to get back out on the field, but the minute you hear this team has 30 players, if it's LSU, Clemson, I mean, every time you turn around, there's teams that are having that. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Because all of us cover events, or we cover studio, or we do different things like that. How is that going to impact you? You know, James, when you look at it and you start thinking about just the things that you do, even if you're maybe not covering events, the events that you want to cover, you may have to have a pullback. It's just really a awkward time now that we're getting closer to, especially football season.
You're right. The one sport I'm a huge fan, you know, of college football. Even though we don't cover it a ton on my show, I love it. You know, grew up in the South, so that's the one thing I'm worried about. And it's college sports. It's one thing for professionals, the NBA, MLS, NFL. You're talking about paid professionals who can make the decision not to play, right? In the NBA, in Orlando, in the bubble, some athletes are saying, yeah, I'm not playing.
How you gonna have a bubble? That's the one thing. How can you create a bubble?
And that's what I'm worried about with college football, because in Major League Baseball, some athletes is like, hey, I'm not playing. Mike Trout, the best player in baseball, arguably, is saying, hey, yeah, I'm actually worried about this, because, you know, my wife is pregnant with our first child. I'm nervous about this. So professionals can make that decision. I'm not sure, you know, that the college athlete has that ability. Now, you can sit there and say, oh, well, just don't play. Well, it's easy to say when you're not the scholarship athlete, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really tough for the college athletes. College sports is what I'm worried about, because if you can't have students on campus, how can you justify having athletes on campus working out?
They're pros. They're pros. You might as well say they're pros.
That's my point. Once you make that decision, that decision is made, that in the best interest of keeping a program alive, keeping revenue coming in, what's the next step? What's missing? And so college athletes are the ones I'm really worried about. That's the one I'm not so sure about. The others, you got professionals making those decisions. They can make that decision based on their paychecks and what they want to do with their families. I'm not so sure that's a fair decision for college athletes to have to make.
Kim, I'm becoming.
think that's a.
Charles,
Go ahead, Kim. Yeah.
Real quick, two things. Have you heard about the Kansas State situation? Football.
Yes.
I mean, the AD is blaming the players who, quote unquote, left the bubble. Well, campus has to be the bubble, right? I mean, you can't blame that on the players.
No.
When they came in here, it was only 10 guys or whatever it was who were infected. Now look at the team, you know? It's crazy. And Stanford just I think this is the last year, 11 varsity sports are gone.
Yes.
Right? So the bottom line is, to your point, they finally may have to say that they're professional athletes. They may have to, because you can't lose the NCAA tournament and lose college football. Yeah. And so,
$4 billion at least.
It's impossible.
It's not possible.
So what's going to happen is, now we're going to find out that football not only feeds those other sports, but it also feeds the library. It also feeds some other things on campus that we don't really talk about. So
that's a great point, Kim, because somebody asked me, I was doing a radio show the other day, and somebody asked me, they said, well, why are they shutting down these sports that don't have a lot of scholarships? And I said, it's very, very simple. Because he was looking at it from a tuition dollar standpoint. I said, it's very simple. Tuition dollars don't go to the athletic department. They don't. They go to making sure the dorm is maintained, making sure classroom buildings are taken care of, making sure professor salaries are paid. That's where tuition goes. The athletic department budget takes care of a lot of other things. The other piece of that I really explained is, and we all know this, I think I can't remember all the names, but Jim Harbaugh's job at Michigan as the head coach, his job comes through an endowment, essentially. He is the such and such somebody's name head football coach at the University of Michigan. He's not just the football coach at Michigan. So there's someone writing a check to pay his salary. That's it. They're not writing a check to make sure the golf team is okay. And so that's where the disconnect comes in. And getting back to James's point, I've been saying this all along. We all been to college, and we probably, I'm going to assume all of us at least at one point lived in a dorm. Generally on a floor, you got what, maybe 40 guys and a couple of bathrooms with 20 rooms. If you can't put 40 guys on one floor, you can't put 130 in a football locker room. There's no way you can do it. So to me, to James's point, if you can't bring the students back on campus, you can't have sports unless, to Kim's point, you just mark it down and call them pro athletes and start cutting checks. And we've seen right now with COVID and the way it's impacting a lot of we've seen Furman shut down baseball. We've seen Cincinnati lose program, Bowling Green, all these different schools are shutting down these different sports, App State. So again, if this is just COVID in 1 year, can you imagine if you add losing football because of COVID, and then all of a sudden they have to accept that they do need to pay these players? We're going to see more than just 11 sports from Stanford go away. We're going to see a whole bunch of schools cut a whole bunch of programs. And the interesting thing is, for a lot of the people who say, don't take care of these athletes, they're going to realize that by not doing it, if this continues, it's going to be worse for the sports that they like anyway.
Paul, we'll go to you, and I want to get your take. I know you were waiting, but it's an interesting topic because here's what I told people. You got to have medical staff that has to be on point. Your trainers have to really be clued in, because who's quarantined, who's not, who's available. And Kim, you talked about the AD or the president getting upset. Think about the finger pointing that happens if the training staff doesn't know who shouldn't be out there, and then they go out and they should have been quarantined an extra day or two. There's a lot of variables that I have never seen. You got to wipe down equipment after each one. The stuff that they're talking about using in football, you got to be able to breathe in the South. As hot as it is, you can't have certain things that cover you. You want to be covered, but it's so many different things. So Paul, I want to go to you on that, with COVID and sports. What is it going to be, and what does that look like?
I don't know. Me and Reggie have had this conversation separately. I think it was a quick Twitter exchange, but I said it. I've been saying it for months. Everybody's asking me, obviously, because they know what I do. A bunch of my friends and family, hey, when is sports coming back? And I'm like, well, when is school coming back? That's all I keep saying. If school's not back, no sports. That's just where I'm at with it. And I say that knowing that if there are no sports, my job is in peril, frankly, right? Like I realize that, but I mean, come on, man. Like, what are we talking about here, right? Like it just, to me, it's common sense. But to Reggie's point, money rules the world. So honestly, these presidents and ADs just have to look at it and say to themselves, is money worth more than potential lives? Like, let's just call it what it is, right? Like, how much do we want this money?
Yeah.
Because we know, of course, like we all know, and I think Reggie hit on a lot of key points that I think a lot of people, and it's something you said earlier, Buck, people just talk and they're so uninformed. Like a lot of people, we know this because we're in the business. A lot of people had no idea the stuff that Reggie just said about where the money comes from and where things go. We all know this. Like we know how much football and basketball at most schools pay for everything. Let's just call it what it is, right? So we get it. We know what's at stake, but is it worth potential lives, right? Like that's what we're talking about. If you go always look at a situation and say what's best case scenario, what's worst case? The worst case is kids dying for our entertainment. And to me, it's not worth that. Now, on the technical side for what I do as a producer, my job is to document the game and document the environment. So whether I'm producing a game of, 100,000 in the fans or, 30,000, whatever they're going to do, or no fans, my job honestly doesn't change as a producer, right? Yeah. I still got my cameras, well, probably less cameras, but I'm calling my replays. I'm giving traffic to my talent, whether there's talk about talent sometimes not even being in the booth next to each other. I've heard maybe not even in the same city. Like there's a ton of stuff being thrown around, but for the most part, once the ball is tipped or the ball is kicked off or whatever it is, as a producer, I'm producing, right? I'm locked in, and everything beyond that is just all of the outside stuff and the COVID and I guess it's kind of lost to me at that point if we do have sports, but I don't know if the risk is worth the reward.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're going to take a short break and come back, man. That was a good, that to me is what I hear all the time, but it's always good to hear other people talk about it because it's the same thing. It triggers your mind on certain things. We're going to take a short break, chopping it up with Buck. We'll be right back.
How you guys doing? It's Scott here. The reason why I like Thin Energy is because I need to be at my peak performance no matter what I do. Big sports drink for me, keep it going, keeping myself up. It gets me on top of my game, extra boost that I need to keep it going in the fourth quarter. Working out, definitely a good drink for you to have. All the good nutrition that you need inside of it. Passion fruit, it's my favorite one. It's not just for professional athletes, it's for everyone. Yeah, I definitely can say it definitely works in the office or in the weight room, wherever you may be. You can go to thinenergy.com, tell them I sent you, and get you a drink. Thin Energy, the healthy alternative. Drink it, live it. See, if I got something like that, I can just go.
No sugar, no crash. Thin Energy. Many people are looking for natural alternatives to help ease their aches and pains. Begin stopping the pain with the help of Pain Stopper. Formulated by healthcare providers, Pain Stopper helps alleviate a variety of physical ailments so you can get back to doing what you love.
Our products are triple independently lab tested to ensure the highest quality hemp available.
Visit PainStopCBD.com for more information. Pain Stopper, because why manage pain when you can stop it?
How you guys doing? It's Scott here. The reason why I like Thin Energy is because I need to be at my peak performance no matter what I do. Big sports drink for me, keep it going, keeping myself up. It gets me on top of my game, extra boost that I need to keep it going in the fourth quarter. Working out, definitely a good drink for you to have. All the good nutrition that you need inside of it. Passion fruit, it's my favorite one. It's not just for professional athletes, it's for everyone. Yeah, I definitely can say it definitely works in the office or in the weight room, wherever you may be. You can go to thinenergy.com, tell them I sent you, and get you a drink. Thin Energy, the healthy alternative. Drink it, live it. See, if I got something like that, I can just go.
No sugar, no crash. Thin Energy.
All right, we're back chopping it up with Buck. Had a good group of producers: James Dunn, Kim Belton, Paul Irvin, and Reggie Walker. Hey guys, I know we started out talking about breaking into the industry, but I always am blown away by what sports can do and what our impact can have on young Black males or females that are trying to get in this industry. And I'm always curious to see how you're mentoring, who's coming to you, because it happens all the time. I mean, if I'm going to a game or if I'm out somewhere at a event or a function and people find out you're in the industry, they want to get in. How have you worked to mentor or raise that other talented group of people that are coming behind us? Kim, I'll start with you on that one.
Well, you know, having been in this thing since 1981, you know, I've seen a lot of talented people come and go, and talented people who, you know, have kind of mentored, who now are doing really great things. Rico Labes, he does special projects for ESPN. Just a long list of people. And basically for me, you know, I feel like I have this knowledge and I can impart on people, and I don't hold it and feel like, oh, you know, if I tell someone that, they basically gonna take my job. I think we're past all that. You know, I think we need to get more inclusion. And for me, I'm always doing it. I have done it since I became a producer back in the 80s. So that's pretty much the way I work it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the insight. Years ago, when I was a young broadcaster on the scene, and you were giving me some pointers because I'll tell you this, I never could get honest feedback at that point. I mean, people would tell you you're doing a great job, and I was always worried, I'm doing a great job, and I'm getting fired. So I appreciate that, Kim, from years ago when I first started, and I could text you or call you, and you would be honest with me, say, hey, do this or work on this. And I don't know if I ever thank you, so I'm gonna do it right now while we're on here. James, what about you? What are you doing? Yeah, you're welcome. What about you and what you're doing to mentor the young up and comers?
So one of the things I try to do is, you know, talk to them about, you know, not only my journey, but the PAs that I work with who started in the business. And listen, I live in Connecticut. I work in Connecticut, and you know, when people move up, you know, I moved from the South. I moved from Atlanta. One of the things you notice when you move to Connecticut, you know, is not the most diverse place in the country. So when you move there, you're like, okay, well, who can I identify with? And I think everybody on this call can relate to that. So, you know, what I try to do is find, you know, some of the, people on who work within the company, especially the younger people, and just say, hey, look, I've been where you are. I understand how hard it is to navigate, working at a place like ESPN. So it's making sure that they understand, one, that professionalism, two, that we talked about it earlier, but, you know, unfortunately, sometimes, you have to do it harder. Yeah. You have to do more to get the same amount of recognition. And part of that is being professional, showing up on time, and taking it serious, like doing your job to the best of your ability, trying to stand out. And so hopefully people in my position can speak up on these younger PAs of color and saying, hey, take a look at this person. Because one of the things that when it comes to promotion, that a phrase that I hate to hear when I'm on a hiring committee is that when it's a white candidate, it's they're a go-getter, let's give them a chance. When it's a minority candidate, it's I'm going to take a risk. We got to remove that. It's not taking a risk. You know, they're going to work just as hard and they're going to do as good a job. So it's one of those things where it's trying to mentor them to be professional and then trying to be a voice for those people in the rooms that I can be a voice for them to say, hey, look at this person the same way you're looking at every other candidate, and give them the same opportunity.
Yeah,
White
Paul.
folks can fail up.
Yeah.
We can only fail down.
That's a great point, Kim. That's a great point. I mean, I think we all have seen that, and we've all thrived in the industry that we know that's there. We're not saying, hey, I'm going to complain about it, but it has been the truth a lot of times. Hopefully that'll continue to change, and we got to force that change. Paul, what about you?
It's kind of, the same stuff you heard. I really believe in mentoring, whether it's in an official or unofficial capacity. And as it directly relates to us, I just grab them. I don't have to know them. If I'm walking around a newsroom and I see, I'm like, hey, who is this? I ask somebody that works with them, like, hey, who is this? Oh, okay, I'm gonna grab 5 minutes with them. Like, as you said earlier, I went to Florida A&M. I reach out to the people in our broadcast department over the years, and I tell them, any broadcast students, send them to me. Here's my card. Here's my information. I'll look at a reel, whatever you got to do. I go to NABJ with the company. There's a number of people I've mentored over the years, and just keep in touch with them. I'll pass on their resume, their reels. I give them feedback. So I really believe in that, because frankly, the reality is I want to see more of us working with me, right? I want to see us win, and the harsh truth is not many people do, right? If I don't do it, then who's doing it, right? Shame on me. If for me to be a producer at ESPN, if I'm not bringing people up, because it's not a lot of us, then who, right? A PA giving HR or somebody a CP or resume is not the same as me. Let's just call it what it is. I've been blessed enough to be doing this for 19 years, so I have contacts. I've learned a lot of stuff. So I'm really big on trying to pull us up and, get us in the door, because, it's a shame that, me and Kim are, right? There's 2 Black producers at our network. You looking at them, on college football specifically.
Yeah.
I need stuff like that to change. So I'm all about reaching out, pulling up the young people.
Hey, Reg, one thing on that, not just the mentor piece, but I think the one thing, sometimes people come and aren't ready. Like James, you said, the guy told you you're not ready. How do you not only mentor, but work with those folks to help them understand, hey, here's what you have to do. I mean, I'm going to put my name on you, but I need to see you do X, Y, Z before I really push you to where you want. You're not there yet, but I see the potential in you. How do you have those conversations with folks?
Well, the first thing I do is I lay it out to them. I give it to them, straight. And James and Paul have seen me do this when we all work together at times. Listen, this is where your issue is, and this is why this is your issue. And if you want me to step out and push you forward in front of people, this is what I need first. If you can give me this, I can sell the rest, right? Kim made the point, selling up. Well, I can't sell up if you haven't given me the tools to sell up. So I think the first thing that I always try to do is tell them the truth on what it looks like, what the perception, right? Because it may not be totally reality, but tell them what the perception of them is first. That's number one. And then the second thing is, and this goes back to what my mentor did for me, not even in the business, just in life. He told me a long time ago. He said, the best way to master your job is to understand how your job impacts all the people that touch your job every day. So the other thing I do is I teach them, okay, you're a production assistant, your job, if you leave a flash frame, that's going to impact the director. If you build a graphic the wrong way, that's going to impact the graphics operator, the AD, and the director. You have to know how your job, especially when you don't do it the right way, impacts everybody else. And that'll help to teach folks the importance of staying on top of their job and the consistency of doing not just their job, but more. And then the other thing I teach people is, when you get a project, when you get an assignment, when someone asks you to do something, make sure you're clear on what their vision is. And if you have a different vision, that's fine. Before you execute it, have the conversation and make sure at all times, no matter what you do, you can explain your thought process. Because if you can't explain your thought process, nobody wants to hear you. I don't care what you decided. because I don't know how you got there.
Because you just did
And so-
something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I try to impart on younger folks in terms of mentoring. Because the mechanics of the job, yes, they're important.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what did we always hear as athletes? If you make a mistake going hard, I can coach you out of that. If you're not going hard and you screwing up, what am I supposed to do? So I teach them the right approach.
Reggie, I like that. That takes us, Kim, and this is one thing. Kim, go ahead. If you
I was just gonna say a key word to Reggie's point is, and a lot of people don't like to hear this word, but it's patience also. You have to have patience, but now patience it goes both ways. They have to have patience with you, and you have to have patience in your job.
Yeah.
When I say they, I mean the companies that you work for. You know, if they're gonna fast track you, then maybe they can give you some room to grow and to become the swan, right?
Yeah.
They give you room to grow and maybe make some mistakes. They don't give you that room to grow, then you're gone. And like we said, you fail down.
Yeah. One thing I want to kind of end on, guys, is Black athletes finding their voice, and I think this is really fascinating, and I think it really started with the NBA. I mean, there's been other things. Colin Kaepernick, we can say that, but what's your thoughts on that? How these not only pro athletes but now college athletes, Colin Hill down at Mississippi State, speaking of Chuba Hubbard. Not about a shirt, guys. I think people don't realize that now. They even look, and Mike Gundy's giving some salary back because he's not close to his players. There's a lot of things that come out of that. And you knew once he was speaking, it wasn't about a shirt. It wasn't about even the network. It was about not knowing who I am. You sat on my couch and told me, you're going to take care of me. Take care of me as a whole person. So I want to get James, give me your thoughts on that about the athletes now finding their voice, male or female. I think it's just been really, really good.
I think it's terrific. And we had Chuba Hubbard on the show, and he was phenomenal. And people need to understand, like, imagine the courage that it takes for that young man who's a college scholarship athlete. Again, this is not a professional guy going at a coach or going at a professional. This is a college athlete. They don't have the same amount of power as a professional athlete does. Realized, right? Maybe they're starting to realize how much power they have. And that young man spoke out against his coach and what his coach, was standing for. And I was like, wow, we have to get this guy on the show. He was phenomenal. And we had Alicia Clark on today. She's a WNBA player. And she talked about, the conditions that some of their players were having to live in when they moved down in the bubble down in Florida. And she came out and spoke up against that and said, this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that a co-owner of a WNBA franchise is saying that Black Lives Matter is not important. And so I think it's great that they're speaking out, and they're being heard. And I really, really like the fact that college athletes are starting to understand that their voice matters and that they have a really big platform. And, I think it's great that they're starting to take advantage of that, understand it. And I think it's going to make a lot of these, presidents, coaches, take notice that, hey, we need to listen to our players.
Hey, Kim, you mentioned Kansas State earlier. What about you? I know, from the NBA, from college, it's a lot of guys now starting to find their voice and really come out and say, this is how I feel, this is what we need, and this is as a group. And it seems to be a group effort more. And one guy is the spokesperson, but they seem to have numbers when this happens now.
Well, what a stark contrast we had this summer, beginning of the summer. It was the summer of The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's story. Michael never stood for anything but Michael Jordan. Let's just be honest about it. I love him. I think he's the greatest. I'm sure we can have an argument on that. But the thing is, you contrast that with these guys. You contrast that with LeBron and all the things he's done. I'm just elated. I come from. I remember Tommy Smith and John Carlos, right? Yeah. I just think that's the grist of what we are. That's who we are. You have to fight. You have to show and show out. And that I think that that's what they're doing, and I applaud them. The one thing I'm hoping for is get ready for the jump ball. All right, get ready for the jump ball, and players just sit down and say we're not playing. I mean, that's around the corner. You know it is. I mean, to me, and it's not just a U.S. thing. It's such an international thing.
Yeah.
The fact that you watch the English Premier League and you see them with Black Lives Matter on the back of their shirts instead of their names, with logos on the side. You see them take a knee right before they start play. I mean, that's awesome to me. I mean, that just really speaks to the gravity and the magnitude of what we're doing.
For all those folks that don't know about soccer, also the years of bananas being thrown on the pitch and all the things that those guys have done and had to hear and endure, and not just the big time players, but players that go through those leagues talk about that in European soccer or Premier League or whatever league they're playing in. Paul, what about you? What's this like for you to hear young voices or professional guys really coming to the forefront and speaking up?
I think it's great. I think it's long overdue, and I think it's made a lot of people uncomfortable and nervous, and I think that's great. I mean, why? I guess the way I look at it is, why would you not be speaking, right? Like, I guess the obvious answer would be fear, but when you really think about it, fear of what, right? Which is, and we always used to look at it as like, people would say, well, of course LeBron could talk, right? He's not going to get cut, right? But then, which is obviously true, right? I'm not going to act like, LeBron speaking out is the same as, Caldwell Pope speaking out. But my point is, it's time to speak, right? It's been time. But if you stand for something, like, if you want to go to the Cowboys, right? Like Jerry Jones has said, anybody that kneels, they won't play for the Cowboys. All right, buddy, that's not true, right? How about, so Dak Prescott kneels, he's getting cut? Like, knock it off, right? You're going to cut Zeke if he kneels, right? It's time to start calling some bluffs, because a lot of the rhetoric has been ridiculous. And again, it's about the fear that's been instilled. Now, I don't know why any Dallas Cowboy worth anything would believe that. Like, he's not cutting Zeke, right? You're going to cut Zeke if he kneels on Sunday, Jared? Really? That's what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Right? But for some reason, players have been made to feel that they literally can't speak, right? Whether it's losing endorsements or losing playing time or paychecks or just whatever the case may be. And I think sports is just a microcosm of the world, because I know at our company, we have 22, 23-year-olds who've been speaking up on some of these calls, and they've been powerful, right? The youth you see in these protests, these are young people doing, a young person burned their precinct in Minneapolis, like, right? So they kind of grew up, not experiencing as much racism as we've seen and our parents have seen. So they're just like, what is this? Like, we're not going for this. So, I think it's a very welcome change.
Hey, Reg, I'm gonna get your final thoughts and then go around the room too. What kind of tell us moving forward? What does that look like? I mean, what are your final thoughts as we kind of close this out? It's been impactful for me to hear it from you guys, because I know you, but to hear it like this is such a a good forum. What are some final thoughts from you?
I think what is happening is, and let me say this first, because I think one of the things that's been really, really interesting to watch is how you listen to coaches, right? When they come and recruit you, or when they go get these kids, they tell them, we want you to become part of our family, and you're going to respect your teammates and love your teammates and play for the guy next to you and all these things. But now they're being challenged on that, because there are things going on in these locker rooms, things going on in these communities that are the opposite of what they've been preaching to these players to get them to come there. And these players are saying, no, that's not what you told me. So I'm going to hold you accountable for what you told me. Yeah. So I think to me, that's the first step in the process, because now, we've heard for years, right? The comments, coaches will go into a home and pitch the NFL or the NBA to these athletes. No, you're not going to pitch that anymore. You're going to come in here, and whatever you say is going to be what you're held accountable for. And I think that's what the seed change and the paradigm shift, for lack of a better term, that we're seeing. And I think that's going to continue. And what's going to happen is young athletes are going to have a better grasp of not only their program that they're a part of, but the community around it. Because the reality is now their platforms are bigger, which is why, look, people can say what they want about what social media can and can't do and how bad it can or can't be. Social media is really helping, because the difference is now, by the time a kid like Chuba Hubbard or a kid like Mikey Williams, wherever he ends up, basketball player 2023 class, wherever he ends up, he's probably going to have more people that are aware of everything he wants to say via Twitter or Instagram than his coach, his athletic director, and the school president all in one. And so now the difference is, not only do I have the power, but I have the reach to get my message out before anyone else. And I think that's what makes this thing so important, because once the message is out, you can try to backtrack all you want. We've seen it, Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You talked about Kansas State, all these different places. But the reality is these kids have platforms. And I think I laugh all the time, because right now we're seeing more of a social media version of what Derek Jeter created with the Players Tribune. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, JD, I'll go to you, Paul, and then Kim. Final thoughts as we close it out.
This was great, Buck. I've enjoyed listening to Reggie, yourself, Kim and Paul. And I think it was a great idea by you and your producer to let people see the show and see that. And there's a lot of people. You see a lot of people of color in front of the camera. There's a few of us behind the camera as well, but we need more. Yeah. And I think that don't, anybody who's watching this, if you have an interest in it, someone who has an interest in it, the avenues are there, and do some research. Go to your schools, find out about things. You can find out you can have a career in broadcasting, whether it's in front of the camera. We all can't be Charles Arbuckle. We all can't be Stephen A. Smith. But there are some roles for us behind the camera where we can make a difference. So that's my final thought. Just stay encouraged and be diligent.
Paul, we'll go to you. Final thoughts.
Just kind of echoing what JD said. I mean, this was great. But the reality is, and why we're doing this is that there's not, like, just looking at this screen, right? And there's 5 of us, and we're producers, and Buck, you're obviously an analyst, but this is not the norm, right? Like, I would love to sit in a meet. I've never sat in a meeting at work and there's been 5 Black people in that meeting ever. Just think about that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Five is not a lot. And, I've been in meetings with 50 people. There's never been this many people, right? So these are the things we're trying to change. And to JD's point, right? You don't have to have played sports, right? You don't have to be an analyst. You can be a producer, right? When I started as a production assistant, I never thought about being a producer. Like, I didn't even know that much about like the trek to get there. I just, you look up, you're promoted. I'm like, okay, I'm an AP now. Like, what's next? A producer. Oh, okay. I guess I'm a producer, right? But the point is that there's a lot of game out there, and you can get it, right? There's plenty of people like us that you can reach out to, but this is an anomaly, and we need to change that, right? Sadly, you'll never see 5 people in most places, 5 Black people in the same business, same field in a meeting. And this is very different. So it's been great. But these are the conversations that we want to have at work in those meeting rooms, which is why stuff like this is so important. And we're trying to get things changed within our individual companies. So this has been great.
Good. Kim, I'll go to you last.
First, thank you for the opportunity to be on. And secondly, for everybody else on the call, through emails and stuff, feel free to reach out if you need anything. I've been around a long time. I want to say there's a reason I was around for a long time. But I think that, honestly, I'm with Reggie. This is not just a moment. This is going to be a movement. And I think we're really, I think we're headed to better days. Because you stay around long enough, you'll see that we didn't have these kind of calls. We didn't have all this kind of reaction after, say, Rodney King. We didn't have these kinds of thoughtful, heartfelt things come up. So I just think the movement is on, and I appreciate us being on the kind of forefront, if you will. And I appreciate, Charles, that you thought of us to give us an opportunity to speak our piece.
Yeah, well, it was a reason why. When I got let go by ESPN, I heard from all of you guys in one way, shape, or form. And when that happens, when you get a gut punch, sometimes you go to your knees and you don't know what to do. But I think the beautiful thing about it is when you cross people and they know you have skills and you work hard, they know that. And so no matter what happens at a company, and I say this to all the young people, be ready to get fired. When you go somewhere, it can happen. It will happen. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you have a long career and you can stay at one place. But I'll say that to say that this is the reason why when I talked to you, Kim, years ago, and JD, when I saw you come in the building, Paul and Reggie, it made me better as a person, because I couldn't come in and half step. I couldn't come and give you no BS. I had to come with it every single day. And I wanted people to understand what it's like for the producer and the side that you guys know to get the best out of people. And it doesn't matter who you see, whether it's Stephen A. Smith or, any of those guys. They need somebody like you to push them. And that's why I had you guys on. So I'm thankful for it. We're going to do it again. And next time we'll do it live where we can sit down and see each other and chop it up like that. So thanks for joining us on this edition of Chopping It Up with Buck, with James Dunn, Kim Belton, Paul Irvin, Reggie Walker. I'm Buck, Charles Arbuckle. See you next time.
It's Artavis Scott here. The reason why I like Thin Energy is because I need to be at my peak performance no matter what I do. Big sports drink for me, keep it going, keeping myself up. It gets me on top of my game, extra boost that I need to keep it going in the fourth quarter. Working out, definitely a good drink for you to have. All the good nutrition that you need inside of it. Passion fruit, it's my favorite one. It's not just for professional athletes, it's for everyone. I definitely can say it definitely works in the office or in the weight room, wherever you may be. Go to thinenergy.com, tell them I sent you, and get you a drink. Thin Energy, the healthy alternative. Drink it, live it. See, when I got something like that, I can just go.
No sugar, no crash. Thin Energy.
Many people are looking for natural alternatives to help ease their aches and pains. Begin stopping the pain with the help of Pain Stopper. Formulated by healthcare providers, Pain Stopper helps alleviate a variety of physical ailments so you can get back to doing what you love.
Our products are triple independently lab tested